Good morning. This is Carol Dixon. I'm with the Idaho Federation of Families for Children's Mental Health, and I want to welcome you to our January parent webinar. I hope everybody is off to a good 2018. It's amazing how quickly these years are rolling around. So today we are presenting what parents need to know in regards to the new YES program, which is a Youth Empowerment Services program, the new Children's Mental Health System of Care. So to bring this information to you, we thought it'd be great to have Pat Martell, who is the project manager with the YES program, and also Janet Hecky, who is a parent who's been very engaged in working with the state on the development implementation of the program. So today they're going to talk specifically about some new things that are occurring in January, which is the beginning of kind of rolling out some of the new steps that we'll be seeing across the next couple of years. So we're excited. We feel like it's a victory. It's something to celebrate that we actually have some things tangible on the ground in January. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Pat and let her kind of give you some information. And what Janet's going to do is kind of bring it home to what's real to parents, ask some of those questions in terms of clarifying, oh, what does that mean? How does that help my family? And really try to make it information that's usable for your family. So again, thank you for joining us. There is, I'm hoping on the YouTube site, if you have questions, we really would love to have some questions. So put those into the chat box on the side. There may also be a number that pops up if you want to call, because we feel like it's really important that we be able to answer parent questions. So please share those with us, and we will do our best to get them to get those answers to you. So ladies, thank you very much for joining us this morning, and
thank you,
take
Carol.
it away.
Thank you, Carol.
Okay, so as Carol was saying, the good news is that beginning January 1st, or the first business day, January 2nd, 2018, we do have some substantial advances in the Youth Empowerment Services project. So some of you may know, but I wanted to spell it out, and then Janet asked me some questions that you know parents have on their minds about stuff, and I'll see if I can help. Okay. So Medicaid eligibility has been capped at 185% of the federal poverty level. However, beginning in 2018, right now, that poverty level has been extended to 300%. And in just a moment, we have a slide where I can show you the 2017 federal poverty level rates so that a family can get an idea of the amount of money that actually means.
And are those numbers, Pat, are those like rock hard? If it says that a family of four makes $72,382, and that may not be the actual number, in fact, I'm sure it's not the actual number, does it mean, is that like a gross income number? Or are there deductions that can be taken from what their gross income is that may give them some flexibility if they're just over that amount?
Yes, thank you, Janet, for that clarification. The chart is, for today's conversation, it's a guideline to give you some idea, but as Janet is pointing out, there are other layers to the analysis of a family's income, so it'll be very relevant for families to actually go through the process. Please don't let this chart discourage you when we get the chart up on the screen. Okay, so let me see if I can get us to the chart that I'm referring to.
We're still
there we go.
Technology. There we go.
Yeah. Oh, whoops. Okay, let me go back one. Trying. There we go.
There we go.
Okay, so that's the 2017 federal poverty guidelines, and I actually cannot see them from where I'm sitting, but I know that slide is up there. So if you look in the the column to the extreme right, that's 300% of the federal poverty level. And if a family's income is in the neighborhood of that figure, depending on how many members are in your household, that gives you some idea of where the cutoff is. But as we said, please go through the application process so that you can get the detail of the level that your family's income is at that actually applies to the requirements. Now, there's another thing that goes along with this. This has been extended up to 300% of the poverty level in combination with another requirement. And I'm going to try to get the other slide up there that this applies to. We, as you know, the project is about working with families who have children who have serious emotional disturbance. And so on this slide, we've pointed out 3 of the major changes that are going on. So there is now a new independent assessment process that went into effect in this month. And the independent assessment process is operated by a Medicaid contractor, Liberty Healthcare. They will be using the CANS, which I know any of you who have seen any of these webinars know that the CANS is the Child and Adolescent Needs and Strengths tool. And that tool helps determine the status of a child's serious emotional disturbance. So by going to Liberty Healthcare, one of its locations, there are locations in every region of the state, and going through the assessment process, a family can learn if their child has serious emotional disturbance. If the child is found to have serious emotional disturbance, that family will then be referred to the Medicaid application process, and if the child has serious emotional disturbance, then that family's federal poverty level is 300%.
So there are a couple of important things that you brought up, Pat, that are important for families to know. If you already have Medicaid for your child, you do not need to go through the independent assessment in order to access any of the youth empowerment services that are coming down the line.
Correct. And we don't have services yet. They will be coming later in 2018, but that's a very important point. If you already have Medicaid, you do not have to go through this process that I just described.
Now, there is one caveat to that. There is now respite that is paid for by Medicaid for your children, for your family. And if you have Medicaid already, but want Medicaid respite, then you do need to go through the independent assessment process to be identified as a class member and therefore be eligible for that Medicaid reimbursed
I have to admit,
respite.
Some of this is very confusing,
Yes.
but there are the 3 bullet points on that slide, and we'll get the slide back up in just a moment. Right there, the slide. Those are the 3 new things that are important for families to know. And if you have questions about that, if that is confusing to you, when we're done, before we sign off, we will have a contact slide so you can contact Janet through the Parent Network or myself through the Youth Empowerment Services mailbox or my phone number, and we will be able to answer questions that you have or send in your questions right now. We can answer questions before we get off the air. So there's 2 reasons to go through the independent assessment process. If you don't have Medicaid and you're interested in getting Medicaid because you believe your child has a serious emotional disturbance, or if you already know your child has a serious emotional disturbance, or if you already have Medicaid, but you would like to access Medicaid respite services. So those are the 2 reasons to go through it.
So Pat, let's take a minute here and talk about this independent assessment. What does this look like for parents? What does it mean for parents? And what is the process going to be if they do decide that they want to go through an independent assessment? You already mentioned the CANs. As parents, we know we go through assessments after assessments. So why is this different for us?
This is the first launch of the CANS tool in Idaho for the identification of serious emotional disturbance. So that's the one thing that it's an initial launch of that process.
So, and how is the CANs different from, say, the diagnosis, when we went to our psychiatrist and got a diagnosis for our child?
The CANs actually is based on a clinical interview. So this is essentially what a parent can expect. As a parent, if I were going to perform the CANs, we would have an appointment. Before you come into the appointment, we would speak on the phone, and I would describe to you what this process is going to be, how much time you should expect to spend, what it might look like for you, what it might look like for your child. If your child is a teenager, we might want to set up separate interviews. that all will come out in the conversation, because we want to make sure that this process works for the family, whatever your special needs happen to be, for whether you want the child present or not present, present for part of it, whatever that needs to be. So we will set up those details, then we will have the appointment. In the appointment, it will be much like any clinical interview that you've been through. So as a licensed clinician, I would conduct a clinical interview with you. I would find out, first of all, I would find out in that phone call I spoke with you about if there were any existing assessments. And if there were, I would like to see them before you come in, so that I can get oriented to what has already been asked before and what has already been documented. So when you come into the interview, I would work with you to get the latest information, the updated information. So I need to know a little bit of history, the medical history, the psychiatric history, and then of course I am going to want to meet your child, no matter what their age is, because I need to do a mental status interview with the child. Before you're finished with the interview, we would establish some sort of conclusions. Thank you for the interview, Janet. This is going to take me a certain amount of time, and I will be reaching out to you. What is the best way to reach you? Should I call you? Should I email you? Shall we exchange text? Whatever works best for you, let's establish that communication way. So you leave the interview. As the clinician, I am going to go over the information you provided, and I'm going to use my CANS tool to populate, I'm going to use my interview to populate the CANS tool and determine the answers to the various items on the tool. Then I am going to contact you and say, I have pretty much determined the conclusions of the interview, but I really need to verify some items. So then you would expect that there will be a conversation where I'm going to say, I want to just make sure you said this about your child, and I've concluded this. Does that sound right? And then we would have that conversation. And depending on the age of your child, maybe I have that conversation with your child as well, or maybe we have it all together. Based on that clarifying interview, then I would draw my conclusions about the CANS. Then we have that conversation where I say, here's the conclusions. And then that should be a very accurate reflection of the reality that you and your child are experiencing. Based on that, if your child is determined to be a child with serious emotional disturbance, I would ask you, are you interested in services? Would you like to be referred to Medicaid if you don't have Medicaid? Let's say you don't have Medicaid. By the way, there would be no cost to you for going through this assessment process with the CANS. And I would refer you to the Medicaid program for the Medicaid eligibility process. If you do not, if the outcome is not that your child has a serious emotional disturbance, I would ask you, would you like services anyway for these things that we talked about? And you might say yes. And then I would refer you to resources in your local community that might be able to give you some support, or maybe some lower level services. Or you might say, no thanks, I'm going to go talk to my pediatrician since this didn't turn out to be such a serious issue.
So Pat, I've heard a lot of things about the CANS being very different from my child's diagnostic assessment, where really I wasn't necessarily involved too much. If my child is older, that interview really happens more with the child. But the CANS, I understand, comes back more than just a snapshot of what's wrong in my family or what's wrong with my child, but it really is designed to give a much bigger picture. Can you elaborate a little bit on how the CANS takes a larger view of the family and the child as a whole, so that we're getting more of a big picture of what's going on?
That's a great clarification for us to make about this. The CANS, as you heard me say, is the child and adolescent needs and strengths. And as you say, traditionally, historically, these assessments sort of focus on the needs of the child, the things that have been going wrong, the ways that the child may be getting into trouble or quote unquote failing in some manner. This tool will capture the family, the child's needs, but also captures the strengths. So that's why the interview is so important, to include a family member as well as the child, because the full picture of the family and the child is what is needed in order to do effective and accurate planning. If we just had the things that were going wrong, we really aren't able to build a treatment plan that would be balanced. So what the CANS enables is a treatment planning process in which not only are the needs identified and linked to service types, but based on the strengths that are identified, that's how we identify, well, what are the goals? How can we increase strengths? Where are the strengths that could be grown, and where are the really good strengths? We want to use those really good strengths to build a process to help the child build other strengths. So I have an example for you.
Okay.
If, let's say, a child, maybe an adolescent or even a 12-year-old, was interested in cooking. So, and maybe it even got revealed this child likes to help mom in the kitchen sometimes, or maybe even takes over the kitchen sometimes. But maybe this child doesn't socialize very well and doesn't have the skills for building friendships. If that all got revealed through the interview process, maybe by the time we turn over our CANS document and that clinical interview to your team that is going to help you build a treatment plan, maybe that team could look at that and then determine, is there a way for us to give this child greater opportunity to do some cooking in a way that is going to build his skills for talking and making friends with others? So maybe it becomes a group activity. Maybe if that's too much of an advanced activity for his shyness, maybe we start with one other child and have a co-cooking sort of event where the child who's talented in cooking can help the other child who doesn't know much about cooking. And what we're doing there is not really trying to build more cooking skills, we're trying to build the social skills so that that child at the end of that process now has skills for making friends.
Well, and the child also might have greater cooking skills, which could turn into a trade or something
exactly.
that, if nothing else, is a life skill for
exactly
life.
Right.
Now,
yeah.
One of the other things that I heard you talk about in there is talking about things not in terms of failures, but in terms of needs. And I know in some of the reading that I've done about this that we really are trying to change the conversation away from looking at something as something is wrong with the child, and moving it more towards what areas does a child or a family need some additional support in order to help them be more functional. I know we've all been in situations, particularly new ones, where we just kind of fell apart at the seams because we were a little overwhelmed or we didn't really know how to do something right, and somebody came around us and helped kind of show us the way. You've done that with me with joining this project, where I didn't really know, what I was going to be doing when I first joined the project, and you kind of came around me and gave me support and encouragement when I would give some feedback, so that I knew kind of where things worked and where they didn't, where I needed to maybe change my approach some. So this is a change that I think we're looking for in the CANS, right? Where we're talking about things in terms of needs, where they need support instead of, where they're wrong or failing or messed up or whatever.
Yes. So along those lines, part of the YES project is to bring new services and supports to our continuum of care. So right now, I don't know the exact number, but I believe in our continuum, we have a little over a dozen different types of services. And we have a couple of support services. We have family support services, and I'm talking families with children right now, not adult services. We have the family support service, and we have case management, which is a level of support. And we have respite now in January. In the new system, we have a pretty long list of additional services and significant support services. Now, at this moment, I don't have dates to tell you when these services are going to go live, but we are developing a whole communication plan to get this information out to the provider networks and to parents so that they know what to expect and when to expect it. So, for instance, we have youth support services. What that's going to look like exactly, we don't even know yet. But we know that we are going to have a support service that is specifically designed for a young adult to pair with a child and teenager who needs somebody to talk to, but it doesn't have to be in a therapeutic office with a licensed professional, but somebody who has had lived experience. A lot of other states have had great success with using young adults who have already been through the system and have had a lot of success with their treatment programs, and now are successful young adults who want to give back. And so they like to work with teenagers for that shared experience, to help them know where the pitfalls are, to help them understand what to expect. We don't have it right now, as I said, but one day we hope to see that we have enough youth support partners that before that teenager ever goes into the cans, maybe a youth support partner can have a conversation with that teenager and say, you don't need to be scared. I went through it. This is what you can expect. Be sure and make a list of these things that you want to tell the clinician, that sort of thing. Now, the research tells us that it's the support services that can make all the difference for a family.
Absolutely. I know it's incredibly overwhelming to try and just get through the day-to-day. So many of us are just in survival mode. And having some support and having the ability to talk to someone who's been there really does help us not have to feel like we're the only ones out there or that we have to reinvent the wheel.
Another thing along those lines I wanted to just remind folks is governing this whole project, we are operating under new principles. And those principles are called the principles of care. I forgot to mention earlier, but never too late, we have a website, for those of you who don't know, youthempowermentservices.idaho.gov, or you can put in yes.idaho.gov. At the website, you will find these documents that I'm referring to, description of the cans, a list of the principles of care and our practice model, and a lot of other documents that describe what Janet and I are talking about today. I recommend that everyone go to the website and learn about some of these things. The principles of care in particular are very important to the changes that we're trying to implement because they get to what you're saying about parents can be overwhelmed, parents are exhausted, and these principles are meant to guide those of us who are working in the system and also to inform those that are out in the community who just want to support families around the principles of how to do that. So one of them is family-centered. So a little bit of what I've been talking about has been about why the family should be at the center of the entire process of identification as well as for solution building. And you know, Janet, you taught me that families don't sit around talking about how bad their child is. You think about how you love your child and how your child has all the good and an area of need. And that's where we're trying to shift the conversation to the holistic picture of the family.
So Pat, you talked about these documents that are available online. Is there another way for us to get trained on what's coming and what the system is supposed to look like? Because I don't know about most families, but I probably don't, sit with my computer in bed in my fuzzy bunny slippers, drinking hot cocoa at night and reading these, and
yes.
really having
it might put you to sleep.
Well, it's also that, you can read that something is family centered, but it's one thing to read that. It's another thing to have someone explain, well, how is that different from how it happens now? So is there an opportunity for families to go through training with this?
Yes. So we have some training scheduled in January. Right now, we have 2 dates that are happening in Boise, January 18th and January 19th, and 2 dates that are scheduled in Coeur d'Alene. That is January 25th and January 26th. And I'm very excited to announce that Dr. John Lyons will be at both of those events. And we have 2 dates scheduled for Idaho Falls, February 14th and February 15th, and Dr. Lyons will be joining us on those dates as well. Those occasions will be filmed or taped or whatever. It's so awkward for me to think about that in this age of media. But point being that after those events, if you are not able to attend any of those events, you can go to the website and watch the training event right there. We also will have them posted on other sites. I think YouTube is one site we'll be using. And that way, at your convenience, if you're not able to leave the house to come to the trainings, at your convenience, you might be able to tap into one of those taped or the recordings of those.
So a couple of things. First of all, where do parents go to register if they can attend in person? Where would they go to register now?
You can register from the YES website, so feel free to do that.
So, and then if a parent wants to, has availability but can't show up in person, is there a way for them to attend as a webinar?
Yes. So those trainings dates that I mentioned are in person, and they are also webinar, and they are filling up fast. So if you would like to attend, please register immediately. But I wanted to mention something else. We are right now, I am working with Janet and others to establish a series of trainings in 2018, and 2018 will not be the only trainings. We will continue to train as we go forward. But we want to establish a series of trainings that are designed specifically for families on these various topics that we've been talking about today. We don't have them designed yet, we don't have dates, but they are coming.
So one of the things we really need for parents to do is to reach out to those of us. We have a parent network established, and there are people in every region of the state. So there are people in your region of the state that are already members of the parent network. And as a member of the parent network, we're staying up to speed. We're actually those people who are working with the state in terms of developing these services, which is a brand new thing for the state. And we're very excited and very honored to be a part of this whole system. We regularly meet with the state. We're in their meetings in terms of designing these and producing the communications that go out and everything else. But it is a bit of a rocky road. It's new, and whenever you do things new, you make a lot of mistakes, and we're learning from our mistakes and picking ourselves up by our bootstraps and going on. But as a family that has a child with a serious emotional disturbance or that struggles with these types of issues, if you can reach out to us and give us your contact information, then when we do have communications that come out or we know there are trainings that go out, we would like to be able to send an email out to you all or reach out to you in whatever way you prefer and let you know what's coming and make sure that you have the support that you need to be able to participate and get the information. So each member of the parent network has an email address, and you'll see mine at the end. So if you don't remember this, it's okay. You'll see mine at the end. It's very easy to remember. It's PN, so the letter P, the letter N for parent network. Region, so the word region, so PN region, and I'm in region 4. So my email address would be pnregion4@gmail.com. And if you are in region 4 and you would like to email me and say, hey, I saw the webinar this morning, this is my name, this is my contact information, I'd love for you to email me when you know there's going to be trainings in our area or any pertinent information that's coming out. We would love to be able to reach out to you that way. If you're in a different region of the state, you can just fill in the region that you're in. So Region 6 would be PN Region 6. Region 1 would be PN Region 1 at gmail.com. We will try and just keep those lists. They're not going to go out to the state. They'll be something we retain on our own. But then when there is information that the state needs to get out or that we want to convey to you all about things, we have a way to reach out to you. It also will give you a local contact, or at least a more regional contact for you, that you can use as a resource so that we can help you if you have any issues or questions that come up with regards to the training.
Thanks for doing that, Janet. I wanted to mention before we sign off, although we don't need to sign off. If there are questions or if we should talk about additional things, let's do that. Okay. I had mentioned in previous webinars, but I do want to thank not only the Parent Network that have been so significant in improving the work that we're doing to establish this new system of care for children, but we are partnered with the Department of Juvenile Corrections and the State Department of Education, and they have both been very significant partners with us at the table, driving for solutions, trying to figure out the best way for us to all work together so that we communicate together about children and families that we all have in common with one another. And so far, as Janet said, thank you, you put it very nicely, sometimes we do hit a pothole, but we get up and we keep on moving, and that's part of the spirit, I think, that is making the project so successful, and we're just very grateful for all our partners and for every parent that has come to the table, so thanks.
Well, you're welcome, and like I said, we appreciate being invited, but it's also one of those things that does make this work better is that we are trying to look at this from a systemic issue, from a system-wide, and trying to get all of these different agencies to coordinate with one another and work together. Obviously, we all have we come at it with a different perspective and a different agenda, and it is a collaboration, which means there are compromises and there are things that don't necessarily run exactly the way we all hoped they would the first time, but we're getting there, and we have all the right people at the table. So Pat, one thing I wanted to do here real quick is just to walk through for a parent today what changes, what it looks like for you. So if you're a parent with or without Medicaid of a child with an SED, or a child that you believe, and I'm sorry, I used an acronym, a serious emotional disturbance, you have the opportunity to call Liberty Healthcare, and they are the ones who do the independent assessments. And you can say, I have a child I believe has an SED or a serious emotional disturbance, and I would like to have an independent assessment done of my child. They will set up that independent assessment, and you will have then the opportunity for you and your child, your family and your child, to go through this assessment process with the CANs, where it really will look at, it's a functional assessment. So not only is it diagnostic in terms of determining if there is a diagnosable serious emotional disturbance, but it also is a functional family assessment. So it helps the family, and it can be a very overwhelming and emotional thing for the family to go through, to look at your family as a whole. Where are the strengths? Where is a place that needs a little assistance within your family that could really make the whole idea is by identifying this, we'll be able to come around you and provide services and supports that will help your family function better, because we know how hard it is to function as a family when you're dealing with a child that has a serious emotional disturbance. It is not normal. Our version of normal is so far different from everybody else's. The independent assessment process is about a 4 to 6 hour process. This is not a quick fix for anybody.
And I want to insert there that a family, you don't need to worry if you're not able to do that this month or next month. This is our new system. So when you are ready, you can make that phone call. This is not going away. Hopefully the only way it's going to change is toward the better.
Right.
We will be evolving toward improved processes, but there's no rush. The only rush is whatever you would feel for wanting to get your child connected to the appropriate services, which we are going to be launching the new services later in 2018. But if you feel like you would like to access some respite for your child and your family, then go ahead and give a call.
And again, that independent assessment is absolutely free to you. There's no cost to you, regardless of whether you have Medicaid or not. It will not be billed to private insurance. There's absolutely no cost to the family. So again, once you go through then that independent assessment, if you do not have Medicaid, you will or have the opportunity to be referred to Medicaid to be assessed to see if you qualify under the higher 300% of federal poverty level. That will give you the opportunity, if you do qualify under that will provide Medicaid for your child. You will then have access to the full array of Medicaid services for your child, not just Medicaid provided respite, but the full array of Medicaid services for your child.
See doctors, whatever.
Whatever you need at no cost. There is a sliding.
Yes, from 150% up to 300% of the poverty level. There is a part of that where families do take some responsibility.
But it's very nominal and should be affordable, which is a wonderful thing for you. So those are some of the changes that are coming that you also will have the ability then to do have respite for your family, which we know so many families need because we are living in crisis, in survival mode, and sometimes respite can be a large part of being able just to make it another week. So those are some great things that are coming. You also will have the. Tell me a little bit. There's another piece the Department of Behavioral Health is going to be doing for people who are identified as class members.
So I didn't mention that there is a person-centered planning process that is also being launched this month. That was on the slide, but we didn't talk about it. So the person-centered planning process is, those of you who know what a treatment plan is, or if you've heard about a treatment plan, it's basically a plan that is supposed to identify all aspects of the child's needs, whether it has to do with physical health, dental health, and their emotional needs, but one plan that captures it all and identify what services that the family would like for their child because their child has those needs. Now, some children have fairly intensive needs compared to other children. And those children who have very intensive needs, there is a process called Wraparound. Wraparound is very similar to what I just described as the person-centered plan. Wraparound is a teaming process by which all the professionals that work or should be working with the child because of all the various needs that they have, they will come together and work to devise the single plan so that all aspects of the child's care are addressed on a single plan. So I had mentioned earlier about our partners with Juvenile Correction and Department of Education. In Wraparound, we would have a representative if the child has, let's say, a probation officer, and if the child has an individual educational plan, an IEP, we would have people who represent those systems at the table as well, so that everybody can work together to create the single plan to ensure that people aren't working against each other or pulling the child in two directions, that everyone is working in the same direction. And but as I say, that's reserved for the children who have the most intense needs. But the person-centered plan would be for all the children that go through the independent assessment process that are found to have Medicaid and the child has the serious emotional disturbance.
So that's an important change for families too. If you do have a child who really does have intensive needs, even if you have Medicaid already, going through the independent assessment does give you access to this limited wraparound services. It will be expanding. Right now it's limited. So if you have a child that really does have an intensive need, and you're struggling to coordinate all his care or to get everyone on the same page, that may be a great option for you to go through that independent assessment and then have access to that intensive wraparound services that will help help coordinate, your school and potentially a probation officer or whatever else to get everyone on the same page.
And the wraparound service has not been launched this month, but it is coming real soon. So thank you for saying that, Janet, because I think that's really important for parents who are concerned that their child does have intensive needs. We do recommend that you go ahead and make a phone call. We have a slide. Our last slide has contact information. Where is that? Okay, let me see if I can
have it up.
Oh, there we go. Yes. So for more information, you could call me if you'd like. That address beneath my phone number is the Youth Empowerment Services mailbox. So please send us an email. Beneath that, you'll see Janet's parent network address. So please use that if you would like. And then we have the website address that I had mentioned during today's talk, and a link to the CANS website. So a lot of parents like to look that up themselves. And in fact, anyone can be certified in the CANS. You go to that website and you can read about it. And if you're interested in becoming certified just for your own information, because you would like to know the detail of how that tool is used, feel free to do it. And then the final one is the Department of Health and Welfare website. So you can also find all kinds of good information on the department's website. We wanted to make that information available to families so that you can take steps on your own if you would like. If you would rather get some one-to-one conversation, contact Janet or any of the parent network addresses that she had given earlier. It's just like her address, but put in your own region's number instead of Region 4.
And if you don't know what those regions are, you can look those up pretty easily if you just do a Google search for...
And you can go on the website.
The website will have it as well.
The department website, which is that last email address, website address, has the breakdown of what the regions are for what counties are in the regions.
So, all right. Well, thank you, Pat.
We need to also thank Carol, who is also a very important partner in all of this, and the Idaho Federation of Families. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Yeah, no, we're glad to have you here. So my sense is that was just like a ton of information.
Yes.
So I would encourage people, you may need to watch it twice, because it's really important information. So it is archived on the Federation's YouTube site. So go back, speed through sections that you need information on. And share it with other people that you think that, feel like it's relevant information that they could use. So I like this new format. I like having information presented and for a parent to be participating in the conversation. So ladies, will you come back? There's going to be so much more information rolling out.
I'm happy to. I like the format too. Yes,
okay.
I think
absolutely. And please, parents, do reach out to the parent network representative in your area and have a conversation with us, or just pop us an email and say, hey, when you have information to share, I'd like for you to reach out. We're here to help. We've had some experience. We all have children that have had serious emotional disturbances or still have serious emotional disturbances. And a variety of experiences out there, but we may not have all the answers, but we certainly know the people to call that have the answers, and we'd be more than happy to help you with any issues that you've got.
And also recognize, I know when the emphasis is going forward is really to start developing some kind of local parent network, if we want to call them chapters or something like that. And it's really important to understand that really gives voice to all the parents across the state to be able to share kind of what your experiences are, what's working, what's not working. So we would love to see parents that are interested, that one, if you want the information, but two, you also want to participate in having your voice shared in regards to how the new program should be developed and how services are rolling out is just contact your local person, as we have said, and ask what are the opportunities, what's going on in your community, can you help get something started. And it may look from community to community, it will look very different in terms of how parents come together. It's very organic, it's very driven by the families, so that really is the opportunity for parents in Idaho to participate and kind of drive. They really inform the state on what parents' needs are. So we encourage parents to grab hold of this opportunity and jump in and contact your local parent network person and kind of let them know you're interested. So again, I look forward to seeing you ladies again. Good luck with everything that is rolling out in the beginning, the small steps, but let's get those small steps right, make them solid, and then we'll build on them, because the services that are coming are significant. They're going to really make a difference for our Idaho families that are dealing with children with really serious emotional needs. So it's a good time in terms of what's coming up.
It is.
Okay, thank you, ladies. We
Thank
will see
you,
you
Carol.
next month. We are still up in the air what we're going to do, but we will have another parent webinar next month, so we will be sending out information to let y'all know what it is. Again, this is archived. Come back and look at what we have done in the past. You may find some topics that are of interest to you from previous months. So we'll see you next month. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Janet.